Ready? Good afternoon. My name is Joe Barton. I'm the Republican baseball manager. I've got Mike Doyle, the Democrat manager. We're both here to confirm that we are going to play the annual charity baseball game tomorrow at the normal time at National Stadium, Nats Park. We do have one new charity that we have added, the Fallen Officers Fund. In addition to the Boys and Girls Club of Washington, the Washington Literacy Council, and the Nationals Dream Foundation. People that attend the game can make a donation to any of those charities at the game, or they can also do it online. This is a game that has been played off and on for approximately 100 years. In its current configuration, it has been played since the 1960s. It's currently tied 39 wins for each side plus 2 ties. Congressman Scalise will not play tomorrow night since he was shot this morning. And I did tell Congressman Doyle that it would be only fair that the Louisiana Democrat that was supposed to play shouldn't also play. He happens to be their best pitcher, Cedric Richmond. But Mike says he loves us and he wants to show support, but that's asking too much. So basically, we're playing the game tomorrow. We're united, not as Republicans and Democrats, but as United States representatives. And I believe C-SPAN is going to televise the game, so we'd ask the American people to pray for those who were shot, both the congressmen, the volunteers, and our officers. And it will be play ball tomorrow night at 7:05.
Thanks, Joe. We on the Democratic side, when we heard this news, we were practicing at our field, and we can only imagine what our friends were going through at that moment, and we felt kind of helpless to help them. We went into our dugout and huddled up and just started saying prayers for them that they'd be okay and that nobody would be hurt seriously. But Joe and I talked, and we've decided that we're not going to let incidents like this change our way of life or our daily routines. We're going to go ahead and play the ball game. Players on both sides want to do that. They think it's the right thing to do. I did tell Joe that I love him before the game, and I love him after the game. But during the game, we're going to play to win, and I know Joe's team's going to do the same thing, and charities are going to benefit. Our thoughts and prayers are with those 2 officers. Had Steve's personal detail not been there on the field with him, this could have been much, much worse. And even as they were being shot, they continued to fire and bring that gunman down. And the 2 staff people, these guys get up at like 5:30 in the morning as volunteers to help us with batting practice and whatever we ask them to do. And it's not something they have to do. They do it because they love the game and they enjoy the camaraderie. And our thoughts are with them too, obviously. And to our colleague, Steve Scalise, hopefully he'll be able to watch the game on television if C-SPAN's televising it. And we're thinking of him too. It shouldn't take an incident like this to bring us together. I know in times of tragedy we have Americans do that, but Joe and I have been reflecting a lot lately just on how we can still maintain our principles and our legislative agendas, but we could do it in a more civil way. And when the leadership of this country is civil towards one another, maybe the public will start being civil towards one another too. And the news media will be civil towards members of Congress and the public. And we can change the mood in this country so that people don't get filled up with this kind of hatred. But tonight we want to be together. I just suggested to Joe that we would like to host the entire Republican team down at the Democratic Club. Probably some of them have never stepped foot in that building.
I've been in it one time.
But we want to have them to dinner. We're going to have both teams together and just have a time to be with each other and reflect upon this day, and to share some food and drink and get to know each other a little bit better. So, Joe, I'm hoping that your guys, most of them, their schedules will allow them to attend, and we look forward to the baseball game tomorrow and continuing this great tradition.
I'm going to bring my food taster, but we will be there. We'll take a few questions. Yes, ma'am.
Have you discussed any additional security measures for the game tomorrow and what's happened?
I checked both with the Speaker's office and I checked with the chief of the Capitol Hill Police, and they both assured us that, plus my staff has checked with the National Security Personnel Department. It's going to be a very secure facility. It's designed to be secure, and we've all been assured that it will be a very safe facility tomorrow evening.
Just to follow up quickly as well, the FBI has told us that there was a second congressman who was transported to a hospital with an injury this morning.
Congressman Roger Williams is my coach, and he, in trying to protect some of the players, and my son and I scrambled into the dugout, he sprained his ankle, and he has had medical attention. We don't think it's broken. He was not shot, though. He injured himself in trying to protect some other people.
As far as we've done more on security here, if Representative Scalise's Capitol Police detail were not there, or rather, if he wasn't there, they would have been there. Going forward, as far as large groups of members doing events like this, is this being rethought as to how much security really should be put in place?
There was, I believe, another security detail there from the Capitol Hill Police, simply because there were a lot of congressmen there, and they did assist in attacking the shooter. But as Mike has pointed out, there would have only been one officer, maybe two, had not Congressman Scalise been the majority whip. So that is something that we are rethinking.
And they're generally not on the field. They're at our practice, we have no security detail on the field. There was a Capitol Police car in the parking lot with one officer about 500 yards away. By the time he even figured out what the commotion was all about and called for backup.
And our officers were not on the field, but they were outside the vehicle. They were out by the bleachers outside the field. And the shooter was outside. The shooter never got into the field. He was over on the third base side, and luckily for us, all of our people always stay on the first base side. And the gates on the third base side were locked, and so he had to try to go around behind home plate, and the Capitol Hill Police and Mr. Scalise's police, and eventually, fairly quickly, the Alexandria police all kind of converged on him and prevented him from getting onto the field.
Seeing you both up here, can you talk about, in light of this morning's events, the spirit of bipartisanship on the Hill? And also, you touched on this a bit. The game is normally very competitive. Can you comment on how the spirit of competition might change in light of this morning?
I don't think the spirit of competition will change. I mean, competition's a good thing. We're mostly competitive people, where we wouldn't have made it down here anyway. So we don't mind that part about it. The sportsmanship has always been good at our games. Joe will tell you, after those games are over, we get together for the awarding of the trophies. And Joe has been extremely gracious. The 7 years in a row I
knew that would come up.
and I was extremely gracious when he beat me last year. But no, that's never been a problem, Joe, in all the years, and I've been associated with the game for 23 years. So I don't think that part will change.
We're intense on the field. I haven't played the game in a long time, but when I did, I was the pitcher for our team, and I did brush back some of my Democrat friends, and they brushed me back.
Yeah. But he couldn't throw hard enough to hurt us, so it wasn't that bad.
I certainly couldn't today. I don't believe I could get it to home plate today without bouncing it. But, you know, as Mike pointed out, hopefully this will You know, you can be intensely political without being personal.
Yeah.
And a lot of the traditions of the House are designed to diffuse personal animosity. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, my good friend from Texas, you can't make personally derogatory comments about another member on the floor. So the rules are designed to kind of diffuse that. And of course, Mike and I serve on the same committee, the Energy and Commerce Committee. And so we have a bond beyond just managers of the baseball teams. But it is something that we probably need to meet at the leadership level and at the regular member level and try to address, because what happened this morning was unconscionable, except that it was there. You could see the shooter ducking out and shooting it, primarily by the time I saw him at the policeman. And he was doing it simply because apparently he didn't like the political climate and chose to start shooting at a bunch of congressmen who today happen to be Republicans. That's not America. Yes, ma'am.
I've been hearing from a lot of members and different people and staffers who feel that the climate's changed here on Capitol Hill. And this is what you're talking about in leadership discussions. And members don't know each other as well. We've sort of had this theme for a while now. Have you felt that? And what needs to change that? And there's someone raising the idea, I can't believe I'm even asking this, that maybe this shouldn't be a Republicans versus Democrats thing. That's an odd question, but I'm hearing it out there.
Well, I think we ought to continue. Both Mike and I, suggested that the game continued tomorrow. We left it obviously to the Speaker and Mrs. Pelosi and the Capitol Hill Police to make the final decision, but he and I both thought that the game should go on. And again, you can be a liberal Democrat or conservative Republican or somewhere in between and discuss your issues on the floor and not go out in the lobby and get in a fist fight. This gentleman apparently drove 800 miles. Now, whether he came with intent, who knows? We'll never know since he passed away. But we need to take a step back, and I think at our level we should be a part of that. That's why we're holding a joint press conference.
Do you think the climate's changed up here as members?
I think the internet and Twitter and all the instantaneity, if that's the right way to say it, of the news cycle has made it more impersonal, and members flying back to their districts every weekend. Very few members live up here. It is a different climate today than it was in 1985 when I first got elected. Part of it's technology, and part of it is the way politics have evolved. The attack politics and the 15-second attack ads and things like that. Members are not looked at as people anymore. We're kind of looked at as I won't say targets, but people think they can come to our town hall meetings and say just the most obnoxious things, and we not feel it personally. Well, I can assure you, every member of Congress is a person. He has family, and while we try not to show it, sometimes we do take it personally.
Yeah, there's just very few opportunities to interact outside having our suits on. I've watched Joe's son Jack grow up, and I always have this yearly banter with him about trying to get a secret, out of Jack, saying, hey, tell me something that your dad's doing that I don't know about. And Jack would always say, I'm not telling you anything, I'm not giving you any information. And so when you know somebody's kid, somebody's spouse, you play baseball with them, you see them at the gym and you talk to them there, it's different. It's when you see that person on the committee level. I mean, I wouldn't think of being harsh to Joe Bart, no matter what we may disagree about politically, because I feel like he's a family friend. But there's so much pressure on members to get home right after the last vote. You see us all running to National or to to Dulles to get on planes because we're not allowed to stay here because then we've gone Washington. We got to be back home in our districts, and the things that used to bring members together, whether it's travel, that's frowned upon. If you belong to the gym, they think, well, that's a perk you shouldn't have. All the chances to interact with each other outside our suits and outside floor debate is few and far between. And I think it's, and Joe's right, when he and I first got here, there wasn't social media. There wasn't the internet. But, now people get information out of a fire hydrant, much of it without a filter. And the level of discourse has become, it's not people don't look at each other eye to eye. They use the two thumbs and insult one another. And there's, it's I just think lessened the civility in not just in politics, but in day-to-day interaction with people that you see outside too. So it's just a different era we're operating in that is a little bit tougher than the one we operated in prior to all these changes.
When my son Jack was born, I was chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, and Jack got as many presents from the Democrats as he did from the Republicans. And he still has some of those. He's grown up. He lives in Texas with his mother. We're divorced, but he's grown up in the Congress, and he comes up every year. And when he comes on the floor, he'll touch base with some of the Republicans from Texas, and then he'll make a beeline to the Democrat side to talk to Cedric Richmond, to Mike Doyle, and when John Dingell was still in Congress, to John Dingell. So he is an example of bipartisanship in himself, and he was at practice this morning, and not only he had 25 dads. Everybody out there was looking out for him, not just me.
First thing I thought about when that happened was Jack, and that he was going to be okay. Cedric had his 3-year-old son at our practice. Closer to game time, families come to watch the game, and they're here, and a lot of them come out to the practices, and I don't think any of us ever give thought to our safety when we were practicing on the baseball field. It just didn't occur to us that anything bad could happen.
Especially at 6:30 or 7 in the morning.
Yeah, we figure most of the bad guys are sleeping. So,
anybody else?
Yeah.
Can I just ask you to follow up on what you were just saying about your personal safety? What do you say to your son or to your wife who's going to look at you now and say, I don't think you're safe at work? Do you feel safe?
I feel safe, but I'm an adult, and I make a conscious decision to run for Congress. Nobody puts a gun to our head and says we have to run. It's different with your family. Your family shouldn't be exposed to that. But it really doesn't matter these days whether you're up here or in Texas, in my case, or Pennsylvania. We've had people protest at my house in Texas when my family was there. And we broached this with the Speaker. It's something, everybody has a right under the First Amendment to the Constitution to address Congress for redress of grievances, and that's why we do a lot of town halls, so our constituency can come and talk to us directly, face to face. Your family should not be exposed to that, and who would have thought that taking my son, or in the case of Cedric Richmond, his son, to a baseball practice in the early morning would expose him to danger. That's not acceptable. So that is something that I will think about in the future.
I bet you most members of Congress would tell you they don't want any personal detail. I certainly don't. I've never felt unsafe here or in Pittsburgh. But I do think, when you have a situation where you've got 20 or 30 or 40 members of Congress all in the same place in an area that is completely open to anybody just walking through. Perhaps we should maybe rethink that a little bit. But I think from a personal standpoint, most members would tell you that they feel fine and they're not looking for any security.
That's this young lady right there.
Do you think there's been an increase in political violence, and if so, why?
Political violence? Well, there's been an increase in terrorism. If that's considered political violence, I'd say the answer is yes. This country has always had a huge amount of tension politically. I mean, in the Civil War, we shot at each other for 3.5 years. Normally, you yell and scream, and that's as far as it goes. Again, the technology today makes it so much more personal, and I think some of the TV attack ads make it easier for the general population to want to resort to personal attacks. That's just my opinion. Yes, sir.
Do you think, you clearly are both moved by this morning's events, do you think this will translate into any actual change in 6 months from now?
I would say yes, because this is the institution of the Congress and the extension of that, this baseball game where, we play it to have fun, but we raise a lot of money for charity. We'll raise over $500,000 for charity tomorrow night. And I think a lot of members who came to the briefing this morning feel like it's time to take a step back. And I can tell you, Mike Doyle inviting the Republicans to dinner at the Democratic Campaign Committee has got to be a historic first step in bipartisanship. And I'm going to order the most expensive steak on the menu. If you have steak on the menu,
We're
you'll
Democrats. We
probably
don't have
bologna
steak, Joe. That's
sandwiches.
just at your club. I don't know that I would go as far as to say yes. I've been around this place a long time, and I've seen a lot of tragedy happen, and I've seen us all say it's going to change, and it hasn't. So let me say the answer I would say is I hope so, because it needs to happen. But I guess time will tell.
It's hard to believe it's only been a couple hours since it's happened, 9 hours. Can you describe a little more of the emotional and psychological stages that you've gone through over the course of the day, how your son's doing? I mean, I see that you've changed your clothes.
I did get home.
Maybe worn off a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm also interested to know, have an update on the status of the victims.
I told him I wouldn't stand next to him until he changed his clothes. So.
Well, one thing that hadn't changed is the traffic. 395 is a parking lot. That's why we started at 4 instead of 3:30. Well, when it happens, I mean, you don't know that you're going to be shot at, and so you hear this bang, and you're not sure that it's a shot. But then you heard 3 or 4 bang, bang, bangs right in a row, and you knew that we were being shot at. And my son was down along the first base side with my oldest son in a batting cage, and I was by the first base dugout on deck circle. So I looked down there and I yelled at Brad, my oldest son, just get Jack and get down, and they both did. And then somebody told me to get down, and I did. And then I got Jack. He crawled under a car outside of the fence, and he was under a car with the bleachers between him and the shooter. So he was in a very safe place, because it would have been really hard for that shooter to even know that he was there. And so then you just wonder when it's going to stop. But you keep hearing these like firecrackers going off, and it may have only been 4 or 5 minutes, but it seemed to me like at least 10 minutes before they finally got the shooter down. And so while that's going on, I could see Jack and see him under the car, and I just kept saying, "Stay down, Jack, stay down, Jack, stay under the car, stay under the car." And I finally saw one of the security officers rush the shooter with his pistols drawn and said, "Drop the pistol," or "Drop the pistol," or "Pistol down." And when he didn't do that, I think this is the officer that shot the attacker. And we got everybody together, and several members of Congress, when Scalise was shot, they rushed to Steve and administered first aid and then protected him. Congressman Winstrup and Congressman Brooks, Congressman Loudermilk, and I'm missing one. There were 4 of them that were out on the field the entire time administering first aid and protecting Congressman Scalise. So your focus is on in my case, both my sons, and then just to get the shooter, and then to check who was hurt. I did call 911. I also called the Capitol Hill Police on my cell phone, and as soon as it was apparently safe to get up, I checked on everybody who was down, and then made a phone call to try to get the speaker on the phone and let him know what was going on.
What do you know about the condition of those shot, including
Mr. Scalise is in stable condition. There was a volunteer, former congressional staffer, who's probably the most seriously wounded. He's out of surgery and is I would say, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what condition to rate him, but he does not appear to be in imminent danger. Another staff person for Roger Williams was shot in the leg. I think he's out of the hospital. Roger Williams either broke his ankle or severely twisted his ankle. He's in a boot and on crutches, but he's okay. At least 2 of the officers were shot, and I'm told that they're okay. Then the shooter was shot and passed away.
So Congressman Scalise is stable, is your?
Look, you need to check with his office. I'm told he's out of surgery, and
You haven't been able to talk to him?
I have not. I have not tried to bother him. No, sir.
Will there be anything special tomorrow in the ceremony marking the
We're working on that, both at our level and at the Speaker Pelosi level. So the short answer is we think so, but we don't have confirmation on that.
Congressman, now you're saying that you obviously want to find a better political climate to really be around, but how can a better political climate necessarily happen when the likely arguments that are going to happen now is going to be on gun control or no gun control?
Well, I can't answer that. I mean, thank God we had security people there this morning that had guns. I don't believe the shooter thought that through. The fact that we had people could shoot back saved a lot of lives. But beyond that, I'm not going to comment. I mean, that's honorable people can have different opinions about that issue.
This will be the last question.
On an emotional level, not a political level, there are mass shootings around this country. It's not uncommon. Does this change how your visceral reaction to when these happen?
Are you asking me or Mr. Doyle?
Mine has always been the same. When those children were shot at Sandy Hook, I mean, anytime any mass shooting like that happens, you think about your own family, your spouse, your siblings, because that's what happened. People lose their loved ones, and these are horrific acts, and I think all of us are just repulsed when they happen, and we have disagreements on what the answer to that is, and there's no easy answer to it. If there was an easy answer, it would be done already. But today feels just like these other incidents to me. Thank God no one died.
Except
the shooter died. We're just glad everyone else was okay.
My reaction is, why would somebody hate somebody so much that they would shoot somebody they didn't even know, other than an act of war where you're defending your country or in your home defending your family? I just don't see how people shoot people. or kill people, attack people. Here's somebody that I've never met, and that, to my knowledge, had never met anybody on that field, and yet he drove a fair distance. And whether he intended to do what he did or he did it on the spur of the moment, when he started shooting, he was shooting to kill people. And thank God he wasn't a very good shot, and thank God we had security officers on scene that shot back and deflected him from shooting the members. Had he been able to get inside the fence on the first base side into the dugout, there were 15 to 20 members and staff that were just laying on the ground, and they were not targets so long as he was outside the fence. But had he gotten in the fence, it would have been a bloodbath. Thank y'all. The game's tomorrow at 7:05. Thank you. Thank you.